Hello and welcome to Hexed Encountered. It's Joe, and we are here for Solitaire Sunday. And we're going to take a look here, a brief introductory video. I know I did a first look. This will be a little bit different than that, of the game Save South Vietnam. So I'm going to kind of just talk about setup and so on. And we'll move on next week with actual gameplay. So this should be fairly short, but it'll give you a look at how you set up the game and what the pieces look like on the board and so on and so forth, so that I don't have to do that when we do the gameplay video or the first gameplay video, because there will be several of them. All right, so let's get started. So when we start the setup here, the first thing we're going to do is we place our turn counter up here in year 0, early 1965. And it says turn 0 starts with phase 7, police and VC recruitment. That's in our turn phases, which are down here. So we're just going to stick this up here. And I know this is kind of zoomed out and everything, but we're going to do what we can do here so that you get a whole bird's eye view of the entirety of the map and just get a good look at it. Because when we do gameplay, this will probably be somewhat of the look, and I'll just pick pieces up so you can see them. But you just get the general idea, because it's going to come down to a lot of, you put pieces in specific areas, and the enemy is driven by the AI system, which will move them in based on certain conditions, and then you have combat and so on and so forth, right? So after we set up our turn counter, and you want to put it so that it's just basically underneath that first one there. There are 3 turns in this first year. There's 65, early 65. Then you'll get a year end. So the YE means year end. So it's the year end of basically like prior to 65. So 64, I guess, essentially. And then you can see, hopefully, you've got winter, spring, 65. And you have some pictures here, some symbols. These are units that will be arriving on turn 1. So we'll get the headquarters brigade of the Big Red 1, 1st Division, the headquarters brigade of the 101st Airborne, and then 2 line brigades from the 3rd Marine Division, and then a couple of helicopters. So you're just going to put this under the year YE0, and then you'll get a year end. The 4th turn will be year end fall winter of 65. Then you'll go into 66. You'll have another year end, go through 67, et cetera, et cetera. So it's very straightforward. You just move all the way through, and it can go as long as spring, summer 1977. All right. So after we do the calendar piece, which is right here, it's basically, you can look at it as your turn track / reinforcement schedule, because that'll tell you when units arrive. You'll also have units that leave, and they are indicated by the parentheses that would indicate remove them from the map. Next, we have the political point counters on the respective zeros for most of these areas. So you have your areas, and you have little arrows that point to them. So here's Saigon and Fishhook. So Saigon is the populated area, the city, and the towns, et cetera. Then you have the outskirts, which is kind of the, I forget what it's called, like border region-ish. There's a term for it, and I'm drawing a blank, and I hate when that happens, but it happens to me all the time. So you have Fishhook. It's called Fishhook because this is the Fishhook of South Vietnam, right? South Vietnam was kind of curved, right? Up here you have the Mekong Delta, which is considered the populated area, and the Riverine. Then you have Quy Nhon Highlands. Or down here you have Bien Ho, An Loc, Cam Ranh, Ban Mae Tao, Quang Ngai, and Kon Tum here. Da Nang, Lower A Shao, Hue, Upper A Shao, Quang Tri, and Khe Sanh up there. Okay. All of our units are laid out over here. That's actually part. Let me follow the setup. I'm getting ahead of myself. All right, so our political points are these markers here. So this is Quy Nhon. You can see there's the counter, right? And it's got 2 sides on it. So this would be the side, if it were to be taken over by the communists, it would get the communist marker, but it is currently not. So you put it on the 0 mark, and you can see underneath there, you've got a VC-1. That means that it's going to draw a VC unit. So you want to get it up here into the positive area from the American slash Republic of Vietnam or South Vietnam area where it's blue, because then you draw police, which will help you move your police points up, and that will help give you points and maintain control of areas. So you start at 0 in most places except the Mekong Delta, because that one's on +1, and you can see the boxes aren't identical. As you go further north, it seems, in general, not entirely, but in general, as you go further north away from Saigon, you have to get further up the track to actually get more control, which makes sense. The closer you are to North Vietnam, the easier it is for your Viet Cong and your NVA to infiltrate into South Vietnam, right? That's just common sense. All right, so once we put all those out, as I said, zeros for everything except the Mekong, which gets a +1, which means you're going to get a police there once we get to that stage and we start actually playing the game. Next step would be the air mobility track, which is our marker right here. It's got a B-52 and a helicopter on it and the symbol of the 1st Cavalry. That starts in 7. And then as you bring helicopters on the map, that'll go down and then it bounces back after. So it resets, but your air mobility is relatively limited as it was historically. You can't just willy-nilly throw as many helicopters and B-52s out onto the map as you want. Then we're going to put all the 25 political cadre units. So that's these guys up here. And these represent kind of political organizations, kind of a counterpart to the police, I guess, of the communists. And they're drawn out of this box up here. And there's also a counter for the Tet Offensive, and that stays in that box until it gets triggered. There's also an optional rule where you could put the 3rd Brigade of the 82nd Airborne and the 1st Brigade of the 5th Infantry in this area too, but we're not playing with that. I'm going to play the base game, and we'll talk about the optional rules when we're actually playing the game. But for now, we're just going to play the base game. Then we have all of our U.S. divisions that took part in the war are listed down here. And you have markers for them. And the key thing here to look at in many cases, so let's take the 1st Infantry Division. So this is the famous big red one, right? So here's a marker. The -2 is its political point impact. So having U.S. military on the map costs you political points. The 3 is its combat factor. And then the boxes here at the bottom indicate how much damage it's taken. There's also, of course, a 1 there in that box. That's the 1st Brigade, right? So you get 2 of these, and you track damage by simply flipping it. So you flip it when it takes its first damage. Then when it takes a second damage, it gets this. Then it flips again to 3. And once it hits this point, it's depleted, and you're going to need to remove it from the map and rebuild it, basically. The U.S. forces are never eliminated. They just get depleted. So that is, and then you have, so that is the Headquarters Brigade. You'll notice it's a solid color. It's completely blue background. Now, its line brigades are these guys right here, and they have the same setup. The difference being, you see the stripes on there. They recover in this U.S. line brigade recovery area. So we'll get to that once we get into the game as well. So again, this is kind of a setup / general rules overview. Very general. I'm not going to get overly specific. So we put all of those in there, and we've got 3 Marine divisions, and the Marines are a little different. They don't have brigades, they have regiments. So the 1st Marine Division, of course, is composed of the 1st Marines, the 5th Marines, and the 7th Marines. That's kind of the core of the core, if you will, to play on words there. And then you have the 3rd Marine Division and the 5th Marine Division, and they all have their regiments. So the 3rd has the 26th, the 27th, and the 28th. The 3rd has the 9th, 11th, and 13th Marines. So that's that. That's the only real difference between these guys and the regular Army over here. From the Army, we have the 1st Cavalry, of course, the Air Mobile. Then you have your Big Red 1. You have the 4th Division. You have the 9th. You have the Americal. You have Tropic Thunder, the Tropical Thunder, and the 101st Airborne. All right, so once we've done that, we place 1 Arvin Regiment, which is right here. and this is the Arvin unit, and they're all identical. And you can see the Arvin, unlike the American Army, has a +1, so it actually improves your political points. On the other hand, their combat strength is a 2, not a 3, so they are weaker, but this is just representing a regiment. And you can see it's got 2, so it gets flipped to 1 there as well. So it's a little bit less, it's more fragile and less powerful, but it does have the benefit of awarding you political points rather than costing you political points. Then we place all of our AA counters, and they're off map, or off shot, I should say, but you get these counters with a blank background, and you flip them over, and it's going to either say no AA or, find one. Oh, there's one that has AA on it. Okay, so I'm probably going to put these in a cup because that's just how I roll. I usually draw out of a cup. But you can spread them out as long as the blank side is up, and just swirl them around and then pick it up. And you find out if you get an AA or not, basically. And then you just organize the rest of your counters off map, which I did, and you're ready to go. So we've got helicopters. We can take a look at that. This one. Here's a full strength helicopter unit, and then we have it with a damage point. And these are the optional units for the US. There's also some optional units for the Arvins, which are like their armored division and their Marines, I think. So the flip side of that, if you bring that in, then you bring in like armored units for the NVA, which makes the NVA harder. So there's pluses and minuses to using the optional rules. So for me personally, first time I'm playing, I'm going to play it just base, and then if and when I play it later on, I will throw in some optional stuff. This is a solitaire game by design, so you don't need anybody else to play it. You can just play it yourself. And having read the rules now, it's a very straightforward game. Looks like it's going to really be a lot of fun, and we're going to see if we can do better than the US did historically in terms of fighting the Viet Cong and the NVA. But that's going to do it for this setup video. I appreciate you guys watching. In 1 week from today, the plan is to have some gameplay, and the turns move fairly quickly, I think. I've watched Bob Phaneuf's playthrough he put it up on YouTube, so you can find that by going to fortress-games.net, which is the Fortress Games website. He's got you click on the Save South Vietnam, and he's got a playthrough video that you can watch right from there, which may be a good thing. I mean, I've watched it. You guys maybe would want to watch it. Get it straight from the designer himself. So that's going to do it for this one. I'm Joe. This is Hexed Encountered. Please consider liking, sharing, and or subscribing. If you have any comments or questions, post them. But for now, we're done. So until next time, as always, happy gaming.